You're right there. A lot of people treat messaging like the kitchen junk drawer. Anything you don't know where it goes or you got to clean up fast, you throw it in the junk drawer. You throw so much in the junk drawer that one day you try to open the junk drawer and it's stuck. Then you're putting your hand underneath, trying to get in there, trying to move a screwdriver around to get whatever it is junked out of there so that you can then find what you need. And LinkedIn can be like that if you neglect it. It becomes that kitchen junk drawer. And so I'm always fighting that. And I think everybody is, but it is something if we do on a regular basis, it gains control. And then it actually becomes an asset because really it's the easiest way to communicate with us. We're on LinkedIn. You can always get us here. Phone calls, emails, the old mail stuff doesn't always work because we're too busy sometimes for those components. And this is something that we're doing every day, or most people do, that are active here. And so it's a perfect place to connect in that sense. Think Jillian wouldn't care about this, so I'm going to throw it in the other drawer. That way, Jillian can put what she wants in the main drawer and it will still open when she goes to it. So that's really the difference is other is what LinkedIn thinks you don't care about, not relevant to you. And so they put it in that drawer. Now, LinkedIn isn't perfect. AI is not perfect. Sometimes there's a reason it's called artificial intelligence as opposed to authentic intelligence. We could sort them better. We don't have time. So we're using that automation to fill that extra drawer up. And sometimes it gets it absolutely wrong. So you have to check it. If you turn on that ability to do focus and other, you always want to check your other drawer daily. And if there's something in there that shouldn't be in there, what you're going to do is you're going to click it, drag it over to focus, and drop it into focus. And therefore, you're now telling LinkedIn AI, hey, you made a mistake, learn from it. So it will. It'll look at the subject, it'll look at who it was from, and say, okay, actually, Julian does care about that. So you're training it. And so I've been one of those who go back and forth. I turn off focus. And then sometimes I come back and I turn it back on. And if you do that, you do have to go back in and train it because LinkedIn is constantly learning about us from our signals every day. And you think about it, we evolve. We're different than we were 3 years ago or a year ago or sometimes even a month ago. Things change, our signals change. And so LinkedIn is going to treat that box a little different every single time you turn it on and off in that sense. So you definitely got to check it and you got to train it. If you do that for a couple of weeks when you first turn it on, then you just want to check it maybe once a week. But you always want to do it at least weekly. Most people, if they're giving you a heads up, you talked about earlier about missing an opportunity because it fell into that other box. If that normally a week is plenty, maybe you shorten it to every 3 days, 2 or 3 times a month instead of every day, instead of several times a day. You just wean off checking it in that sense. I think that's a smart way to do it. I may probably go back and turn focus back on again. Try it out. It's getting smarter. I believe it is turned on as a default. So you just you go into your settings and you turn off that box so it becomes just one single messaging system. There's a couple of ways to do it. In actually both boxes in this sense, if it's something has run its time, you don't need to follow up with it. It's not really important, but sometime in the future you might want to see it again, then archive it. If it's junk, has nothing to do, you don't ever want to talk to the person ever again, you can delete it. Or if it is bad in some sense, if it's beyond just, I would say beyond just spammy, if it's harassment, if it's non professional, whatever it is, then it's definitely you go to report and block. And when you block, if they were a contact, they can no longer send you messages again, even if you have open profile on. So that little block piece comes in. I don't feel bad about if somebody connects with me and the first thing they do is they say, hey, by the way, I've got timeshares for sale. Or have anybody ever talked to you about your insurance? If that's the first thing that comes back, I have no problem deleting that conversation. And if it's really offensive, I have no problem reporting and blocking that conversation. You can't have a discussion usually with somebody who has this thing that I can spam all the time and get more business. You can talk to them all you want. They're not going to listen to you, probably because they have a boss who says, you got to do this. You got to send 2,000 of these a week. So easier to do that report and block. And LinkedIn will look at those. If you did one, they probably wouldn't matter, but more than likely that person's doing it to everybody. And all of a sudden, they're getting many of these blocks, these report and blocks within a day, within a time frame. And then LinkedIn is definitely jumping in and going, hey, we're even going to restrict you from you can't send messages unless they're first level and those kind of things. And they can even completely block you from messaging if you abuse it. And the same thing with invites. Or if you just wanted to go back and read it. If you read it and you're like, "Oh, okay, that still needs to be an archive," you can leave it there, or you can click it and bring it into your main box. They can start a new conversation. So if you delete that conversation, that just means all that information's done. But if they come back and they say, "Hey, Jillian, did you read my last one?" That's a new conversation now. And so they can come back. Now, one thing you can do is you can mute them. So if you didn't want to delete them, maybe you'll look at them later. You can hit mute. And what that basically does is it doesn't pop up as a new one. And it doesn't say, hey, Jillian, every now and then a notification to say, hey, Jillian, you really got to talk to Bob. Bob's been messaging you. Doesn't give you that. It just puts it in mute, leaves them kind of limbo land, which I don't feel bad. No, they just think you're, if you, again, if you delete it, they can come back. If you archive it, they can respond to it and it stays in archive. So that's fine. You can mute it and it'll be in your main box, but you just won't be notified of it. And it won't be hot on the top of the list like LinkedIn does. And that kind of hides it as well. If you end up just saying, you know what, they're nice guys, but I don't want to have this going on, you can then just go and either unconnect from them if you're connected, or you can block them. So that's your other option. It's a little more extreme. If you have on your profile that you are open to connect, if it's a premium account, you click that open to connect, they can still always come back into the wash unless you block them at that point. Who owns LinkedIn? Microsoft. If you look at your Microsoft, if you've got Microsoft Exchange, email, Outlook, that kind of stuff, you can set up your own filters in your own folders. That's what LinkedIn messaging should be. You should be able to have a folder for podcasts, a folder for bulk book buyers. You should be able to have a folder for whatever it is, book clubs. And you should have a rule that says if it comes in, it's about put it in that folder or that tab. And then you should be able to go in and click your tabs. Customizable and rule based to keep it all clean. I think I've got to believe that's coming because that is very Microsoft-ish, and they do own LinkedIn. So I got to figure they're doing that, but it would probably be a complete restructure of everything in that sense. And if they're smart, they would then let us set all our rules up and run them on all our archived or older messages and put them all into the right tabs. So hopefully, and that's very much the way it does in Microsoft Mail, works the same way. So I think that's the big thing that would change a lot of opportunity for us. I use it in a different way because if a conversation is hot, LinkedIn always pushes it to the top. So if somebody said something, they're going to put it at the top and you'll see it as you come into messaging. To me, star is something I use at a time frame that signifies to me I need to follow up. So, in our sense of having the live today, I starred your direct, just you and I, because we're in many different group messaging. I starred yours so that I could click star, you hit the top, and I know how to get here by link, which of course I had to ask for at the same time you sent it to me. We know each other a little too well, but that's the way I look at star. The best way is to use it as this requires follow up, or this is something I want to develop more. So it could be either one, but that's where I use star. Everything else, LinkedIn's going to push to the top all the time if it's an active conversation. So I like that in that sense. If everybody's a star, what's anything else? Absolutely. And I hate to say this morning, inspired by Jeff, I came up with my own little word that means something beyond the letters, and it was safe. So scan daily. That's your S. The A is archive, what is done, but you might want to get back to a little later. And then you've got follow up using the star. That's your F. And then the E is escalate. If it's something wrong and shouldn't be on LinkedIn, that's when you get into that report block, delete. That's the escalate. So that's your safe way to begin using that. And that was Jeff inspired because he's always so good at that. And he can have that. That is a premium feature now. Yes. You remember a video about Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of separation. LinkedIn cuts us off at the second degree, maybe gives you a little of the third degree so they can monetize the database. This is InMail is a monetization of the database. If you've got premium, you get a certain amount of InMails a day, and that goes up based on the next level of premium. If you get into Navigator, or not Navigator, but full recruiter, I think the InMails are like endless. So that's really what it is. It's a pay to play to break down the other four levels in that equation of 6 degrees of separation. So basically, if you've got InMails, you can send them to anybody on LinkedIn. Yeah. Now, yeah, and you do have levels. Like I'm in all in one, which is basically a business premium product. I get 15 InMails a month. If I send one and the person on the other side deletes or didn't respond to it, I get one back. But if I send them all and everybody accepts them all, I have to wait to the next month to get another 15. If I don't use my 15 that month, it will roll over to the next month and then I have 30. And it'll do that 3 months in a row and then it starts to roll off. It can be done in that sense. So if you've got like quarterly things you want to get out there, there's 45 of them, if that's good math. 45 of them you could do in every quarter or at the end of the quarter for whatever it is you need to do. As you go up the chain, you get into Sales Navigator, full blown Sales Navigator. I think you've got 150, something to that effect. So it just really depends on what you're paying for to get those end mails. You probably did because it was one of those options that everybody could have. And then LinkedIn decided to make it part of premium, the open profile. Yeah, anybody can. At that point, anybody can send you a message. No restriction in that sense. And again, it's if you want to have more communication, it's a great option. Now, if you're part of service provider, which is the new version of Profinder, where LinkedIn provides leads so that you can follow up with people for business. If you're part of that, you have to have open profile turned on. So that's a requirement of that program. But outside of that, it is an option, and it's an option for people who want to openly communicate. And I've always had it on since I've really been on LinkedIn. I know with the like invites and in-mails, if you send it to somebody, if they delete it, you cannot send it to them again for another 30 days. Open profile is a little different. If you send them a message, you could send them that next message that says, "Hey, did you read my last message? Hey, just checking in if you read my last message." The spammer's approach. But again, we've made that option a choice. We've said we're okay with that. So at least they asked us permission. We have to actively turn it on. You would go to that area in the preferences in your settings, turn it on, and then you will see it. It's very apparent. And you're grabbing if those YouTube SEO people are bombarding you every day, if you grab their thing and throw it into the other box, you're then teaching LinkedIn that hey, if it's a YouTube SEO or you know where to put them. So just like it goes that way, it also goes the other way in the training model. I'm gonna tell you 2 other really cool options to manage that people normally don't think about. As those messages are there's towards the top of that message, there's 3 little dots. LinkedIn calls that the more icon. That's what it is. You click on 3 dots anywhere you see them, and it's gonna give you more things you can do. One of those is if I get a message and I'm reading it and I was like, "Oh, it's from Jillian, but I don't have time to reply yet, but I wanna get back to Jillian." I could star it, or I could click unread that's behind the more icons. So then when I come back to my messaging, boom, you're probably at the top and it's an unread. And I can also click, there's a little button there that says unread. I can click unread and I can see all my unreads, which is wonderful too. Yesterday, 15th anniversary of Dana's and my business, TNT Brand Strategist, I got a flood of emails. And some of them I got to immediately, and a bunch of them were unread and they fell down because it was just one message. Congratulations. It was very simple. So they started falling down the messaging as new active messaging came in. I click on red and I can go back now and respond to them. So got over 1,000 that came in. So I'm still working on it today, but I'm just clicking that unread. But again, if you get something in and you read it and you're like, I really want to take care of this, I'm not ready yet, click unread and it will put it in that unread tab. Now, another one I think is really cool, and I use this a lot because I do Profinder. And Profinder is basically that if somebody needs something on LinkedIn, they can go to Profinder or providing services, as it's called now. They can go there and say, I need somebody to help me with my LinkedIn profile. And then LinkedIn throws that out to a group and says, respond, send a proposal. Those things can jam up your messaging really quick because they are part of messaging. They come into messaging so they can jam up your messaging, and I might do 20 or 30 a day. So all of a sudden, my messaging gets just clogged. So one thing I've learned is there is a jobs tab. There's a jobs filter. I'm not looking for a job, but those are jobs for me to do. So what I do is as soon as I send that out, I'll click it, I'll put it in the jobs tab. And if that individual responds, the job tab tells me there's something in there. So it lets me know. So then I click on jobs tab and I say, okay, Bob wants a little more information. So you could do that with anything. You could do it for people tell me when your book launches. Throw all of those in the jobs tab because that's going to be a big job. Book launches now I got to get back to 350 people, but they're all organized. So you can use that jobs tab in a way it wasn't meant to be used. And I still think LinkedIn should have just called it, I guess they can't call it other, can they? Other tab, the other tab. But you can use those things in clever ways to stay organized within LinkedIn, but nobody ever tells you that stuff. Yeah, to me, a job is making money. I'm going to go do a job for somebody else. So that's all that stuff that goes in there. It is funny because if I wanted to just find you and I type in Gillian Whitney, I will get back a bunch of stuff. Some of them are group things that we're in. Some of them are not even you. And then you are usually about number 7 or 8 down below. That's very common. I don't know why. If I typed in something very specific, LinkedIn just wouldn't pull that conversation to the top. That's a problem. That's a coding issue. And they definitely need to fix that because you should be able to just type in something and get that person in the process. I don't know why it goes astray in that sense, but if we're using star, we're using unread, we're using things like job tab, and we're archiving. If we don't need to get back to it, we might need it in the future. And if we're deleting because it has nothing to do for us, if we're doing that on a daily basis, every time we're going in, doesn't take a lot of time, but then messaging starts to work. Then messaging becomes very organized and it's almost hard to break the cycle. You need 21 days to make anything into a habit. Once you make it a habit, LinkedIn functions. And if you're using the focus and other box, LinkedIn's also learning from you in where those things should all fit. Yeah. So I think more about getting it set and doing it on a regular basis, and those things will all help you get there. That's smart. And then it takes it out of the mix. Yeah. What is you do have a search box. So we talked about searching for you, but you can search for words. You can search for, I want to have you on my podcast. boom, in quotes, search for it, and it's going to bring up all the conversations that say, I'd like to have you on my podcast. The more natural language you can make that search, the better the results are. If you just put podcasts, you might get everything that ever mentioned podcast in the world, maybe even some that didn't, who knows? Or LinkedIn knows they do a podcast, but they never talk to you about it. But if you put that, I'd like to have you on my podcast in quotes, it's going to go bring those conversations up. So you can search by those opportunities in that sense. Yeah. That is the beautiful thing. There's a ton of information inside messaging, and if we're just trying to search and pick and pull, we're never going to get it all. It's almost impossible. But if you like playing with AI can help you. There are ways to make sure that if you have personal conversations in messaging, you can either edit them out first out of your downloaded files from LinkedIn. So you can edit out anything that has to do with hantavirus and the cruise you just went on because you don't want to be found. So you can edit those out and then save the file. So you can do that. Or as you've done before and know about, you can do a request on many AI in the sense of being it incognito, or this is just a temporary session and I don't want all this stuff to stay within the system. Or that's one option. The third option is once you delete a request within AI, the files attached to it will go away. So you get three ways to protect everybody else because some people do put stuff in that they probably shouldn't. I don't have any conversations in messaging that I wouldn't have in front of my mom, my grandmom, or HR. So that's the way it stays. So I don't worry about it. I've never really had anybody send anything was over the top that I didn't end up reporting that way. So it wouldn't be in that file, that download file, but that download file has incredible amounts of information. So one of the things that you can do is you can go to your favorite AI, tell them, hey, look, I uploaded my messaging file from LinkedIn. You could even say, I cleansed it already. You could even say, hey, when we're done, remind me to delete this, whatever you want, and say, here's what I want you to do is open that file and look for or analyze for, and then we've got the prompt here that everybody can see, everybody can use it. You tell it what to look for, and then you let it know, okay, I want you now, once you've done all that, I want you to organize it and give me feedback from it. So the first one we had is this relationship opportunity audit. I think you had told me you have 140,000 messages. How do you do an audit on 140,000 messages? We never do. But AI can do it in a matter of seconds. One of the prompts says, look for people I may need to follow up with, missed opportunities, repeated topics that came up, conversations that suggest a future get back to me, any messages where I promised to respond and I didn't. So it happens, especially if you use the premium out of office reply, because that in messaging sometimes works, but hides the message because it's already moved forward. And then your ask in this relationship audit is organize the results into high priority follow up, medium priority content ideas. Because I'm trying to get more exposure on LinkedIn, so I want content ideas, relationship nurturing opportunities, suggested next message drafts. So tell me what I should be telling that person if I didn't get back to them. And it's going to print out a really nice report that's got all this stuff. Oh, and you'll be blown away. It'll tell you the top 10 people that you should be really developing, working on your relationship. It'll tell you who are your champions. It'll tell you all sorts of things. Yeah. Well, how many messages do you get that said, hey, could we look at this 6 months from now? And 6 months go by, 9 months, 12 months, nothing ever happened. You never got back to him. AI is going to see that and say, you know what? You said you guys communicated you want to regroup in 6 months or a little late, but why don't you go back? And here's my suggested message. So much has changed in blah, blah, blah. You want to talk about this again? Or have you already solved your issues? And it'll come up with some nice things in that sense. One of the things I did with this prompt, and originally I said, don't sugarcoat it. Tell me as it was, kind of E. Gomer Pyle's drill sergeant, and it was ugly. I felt depressed. I was like, okay, I'm taking that out of the prompt. Just don't go all haywire on me, because some of this stuff you go, wow, and it's not our fault. This stuff is enormous in size, and this really kind of gets it in perspective. So that's that first prompt. I think people will enjoy it. And you decided in advance to do all that work. So I appreciate it. But wait, there's more. And that article is that's when you get serious. This one is a taste of what it can do. Some of the prompts in there are going to ask you to upload 12 different files from your download instead of one. These are simple, but the depth and the accuracy is 10, 20 times more in that kind of report out that's in here. And it really, I think, surprises most. It even surprised me was as I was putting these together. It is incredible what it can do. Yeah. And we always wonder what opportunities have we missed. You don't have to wonder. And it'll give you an approach to go back to those people, which is polite. And you can even say, if you look at the suggestion, you go, that doesn't really sound like me. I'm a little more direct, or I'm a little kinder, or I don't want to beat around the bush a little more than that. Tell it, and it's going to rewrite it for you and make it sound more like you. Then I always say, whatever output you get from I always treat it as a muse, not an artist. You got to look at it, you got to understand it, you got to make it your own if you're going to use it. Don't use it as in, but this is where AI does really well, and that is taking massive amounts of data and making them something we can digest and we can use. And so that's the real key here. And you can ask too. You can add this to your prompt. Show me as much of this data as you can visually and be creative. And it'll come back with some really kind of cool visuals where maybe you got a big pie like Brenda Miller uses all the time, or a big pie, and you got the slices of what each is, who you didn't follow up with, who you need to follow up with, who's spam. Ask it to give you a visual representation of the results as well. So I think that's kind of cool too. Yeah. I'll tell you a really fun one. And it works well. If you got basic, you got to stay on top of it. But if you've got premium, it gives you more look into it. And that is who visited my profile. If somebody visited your profile, and I know there's an individual, Liam DeMarty, who does this all the time, and he's really good at it. He will send back a quick message to that person with using just a meme. It's something silly, something kind of fun. And I saw you peeking. Or, hey, you visit my profile. How can I help you? And it has opened up so many conversations with people. I always say on LinkedIn, they're very active people. And then there are these people who are listeners and learners, and they might look at your profile. They really want to ask you a question, but they're a little afraid to. You send them a cute meme, all of a sudden, boom, now your inbox becomes this little development tool to bring in people that were maybe a little shy in that sense, but are interested in you. And that is a whole new world, and that's a really cool way, I think, to activate a lot of your DMs. To me, messaging is where you convert, I would call it in opportunity. So you have that, so you can do things that are pretty clever in that sense. You've got to start sorting this stuff. You got to start every day, and then it becomes more manageable. It's when we pop in there a couple times a week and we haven't really trained the system, that's where it gets really messy. And that's sometimes where focused and other works really well for you, because we all get too many messages. 70%, 80% of them are probably something you really don't have to jump through hoops to get to. You want to know the 20% that you do, and that makes things a lot more manageable. It should still stay in archive unless you manually move it. Yep. You do have to actually look in there. Yeah. But send me a message. If you've got premium, you can use that out of office. That might provide the link for them to be able to download it. So that helps save a little bit of effort in the sense if you're going to have a couple hundred messages come in that says, "Hey, I want the download," you've given it to them automatically. And then you don't really have to respond back to that individual because you've done what you're supposed to do for them. So that's one way to kind of clear some of that out if you have something big happening where you want to automate the deliverable. Same way we do in the normal sense. It's that search box at the top, perfect way to do it. Or again, you can use AI to do it. Either way. But to me, that top box works very well, even in the archived zone. Absolutely. That search stays with you all the way through the process in that sense. Yep. Yep. Especially if you customized it. If you added one more thing, let me know what it is and tell me what the output was because maybe we update it going forward. And I'm one of those, if I do updates from other people, I give them credit. That's a big part of it because we shouldn't do this alone. And if we try to take all the credit, we end up alone. So if somebody does something and they find a tweak, made it even better, share it and we'll make sure you get credit.